pretty good tip. I didn't really do that. Fully embrace what you're going through. Fully embrace that you're laboring. But then, Rennie, say hello. Hello. I was too embarrassed to say moo, but I didn't even think I was gonna make noise. Is that hilarious? He knew to talk to me and then... Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those who are new here, hi, I'm Sierra here at the Robinson home. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 tips on if you're planning on having a baby naturally or unmedicated. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Also, if you are new, then you wouldn't know this about me, that I have 4 girls. My first is almost 5, and then a 3-year-old, a 1.5-year-old, and then our newest, Lottie, is about 7.5 weeks old. And with my first 3, I actually had epidurals. With one of them, it was like, with Greta, it was like the most perfect epidural ever. With May, it wore off on one side, and with Ren, it started to wear off too. And so I've really only had one, like, really, I don't know, like the epidural really worked on one of my deliveries, but also with Greta's, I had an external cephalic version. If you haven't seen that video, you can check that out. I'll link that so you can see that be done, because it was actually successful. It was successful with May too, but I didn't have it on video. Anyways, I decided to do this one naturally. I hadn't really, so with all of my babies, I always wanted to go as far as I could without having an epidural. And with your first, you know, it's so unknown, you don't really know what to expect. And so I went as far as I thought I could. And when you're laboring in a hospital, when you're induced, I was induced with all 3 of my first 3 and not with Lottie. And so when you're induced and it's your first baby, there's so much unknown, but also like sitting in a hospital having to labor is difficult, being in that much pain because you don't have many distractions. And so I went as far as I could with May, Greta, and Ren, but still with the idea in mind that I was going to get an epidural eventually. With Lottie, I wanted, even with Ren, I really wanted to go to labor at home as much as I could, but I ended up being induced with her with, you know, my mom was in town, but she had to get out, she had to go home, and so we had to have her before, so my mom would have time helping us after she was born, all this, you know, so many things playing part in being induced. But with Lottie, I went to labor on my own. And so I was able to do what I wanted and labor at home and give birth naturally. And I also actually didn't really have a choice to get an epidural once I got to the hospital. If you haven't seen my birth vlog, go check that out. It's so intense and I'm so proud of it. And so if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But I didn't have time to get an epidural anyways, which made it easier to not have that like temptation. So I've written down 10 tips that I have for a mom wanting to go naturally. Not even like, it's funny because it wasn't until like a month before I gave birth that I was like, yeah, I really want to do this. I hadn't really thought, I mean, like I had like, still had that idea in my mind of, okay, I want to go as far as I can without an epidural, help me labor as long as I can. But it wasn't until like a few weeks before, or maybe a month before, that I was like, okay, Brett, I want to do this naturally. I think even a couple weeks I started watching vlogs about, or people's birth vlogs, and people doing it naturally and the way that they coped with it. And so and then I was watching Bridget Taylor, I think is her name, here on YouTube. Do you have a balloon? Come here. Come over here and sit down, please. You have to be quiet. Come show me. Come here. You have to sit down. Come here. Don't knock it. Come here. And she is a certified midwife, or no, doula. I think she's a doula. Hey, Rennie, you gotta sit on your bum with that, okay? I think she's a certified doula, and she gives a lot of tips on how to give birth naturally, and even other things. So many things to do with birth and breastfeeding and all of these different things. She was really great, and I really felt educated by watching her videos before I gave birth. So like probably a week or 2 before I gave birth, I was like, okay, I've really got to start studying on this to know how I'm going to cope with it and how I'm going to get through it to be able to give birth to her naturally if all goes well, if I'm able to. Even if I was induced, actually, I was thinking like, okay, if I'm induced, I'm still going to try to go naturally. And so thank goodness, like seriously, like thank Heavenly Father that I was able to labor the way that I did and at home and everything. It was just so amazing. Oh wait, this has been like the longest introduction to my top 10 tips. I'm so sorry. But okay, let's go right into my 10 tips for delivering a baby naturally. My first tip is to use a birthing ball or a yoga ball. I had it since my very first labor and delivery with May, but being able to really labor on it at home was so amazing. It was the only position it was the #1 position for me while I was in pain during a contraction. When I went to the hospital with Ren, well, when I was going to be induced with her, they had me sit on a ball, but I had like a chair so that it wouldn't move around, which I think is pretty pointless because I really like that being able to kind of like move around on it and not just like go up and down. But this time it was so amazing. I like to either stand or sit on the ball, but on the ball was the best position for me. It also is really good for your body because it gets you in a position so that the baby can get engaged into your pelvis. And so that is my first tip, is to use a yoga ball when you are in labor because it gives so much relief. At least it did for me. My next tip is to breathe, and obviously you're gonna breathe, but this is something I learned on Bridget's channel about the de-stressor breath, that you breathe in for 4 seconds through your nose and then out for 6 seconds through your mouth. And that was really helpful. I don't know if I specifically counted every single time that I breathed, but but it was so, it really helps you relax and focus on something different. And yeah, that really helped me. But then also when I was, if you've seen in my birth vlog, when we were in the car on the way there, it's when it really started to get a lot more intense. Well, it was even at home, but in the car, and then obviously at the hospital, it got really intense. And being able to, I don't remember what the breath was called, but breathing in, and then instead of breathing out, because when you breathe out, you know, a lot of your air just comes right through your mouth. But when you make a noise, like, or she even said, say like moo, or ah. Is that funny, Ren? I was too embarrassed to say moo, but I didn't even think I was gonna make noise. Is that hilarious? But I said, but I went, or I think I went, and if you put your hand up, going, you feel a lot less breath, and apparently it helps that air, that oxygen, go down to the baby to help the baby move out. Don't, like, I mean, like, I'm not a scientist or like super educated as educated as others on this, but it really helps. And it was really helpful to me to be able to make noise to help the baby move down, and also just to be able to cope with that excruciating pain. My next tip is to be at home while laboring and eating while you're at home, because when you're in the hospital, if you have had a hospital birth, you know, and it's different for every hospital, but every hospital that I have been at, they have not allowed me to eat anything. I've obviously ice chips. At one hospital we had flavorings to put in our ice chips, and you can have like broth and things, but like to actually chew and eat something, you're not allowed to in the hospital. And I have snuck things before. With May, I was like, Mom, please, and she gave me 2 little pretzels, and I was like, I don't want to have more because I don't want to like throw up or poop during labor. And so anyways, but being at home and being able to labor in the comfort of your own house, but then also not being like stuck in a room, sitting on a bed, having them monitor you. I am so pro having them monitor the baby when you're in the hospital. I think that that's great, really safe, so that you know if the baby is doing okay. But when you're at home, there's so much comfort. In my head, I'm not really the type of person to have a home birth. Like, props to you if you have had a home birth, but I'm not really, I feel really safe with the hospital. But when laboring at home, I've thought about it in the past couple months with her, and I'm like, man, having a home birth would really be so nice, because you're never like, you get to be in whatever position you really want to be in to give birth to the baby. And it, like, just like laboring at home, it really is a lot more comfortable, I would assume. So I'm not gonna have a home birth. That's not really in my what I'd like to do, but I saw, like, from personal experience of laboring at home, I was like, man, I bet those women really have it pretty good. Anyways, but laboring at home is so nice, and not even at home, but just being able to go throughout your day and be distracted through things. I think that's even that's my next point actually, but I'll go to that in just a minute. Being able to also eat throughout the day. I had like leftover pad thai during the day. I had chocolate at like 11:30 p.m. and I gave birth at 3:14 a.m. And so like, it was just so nice to not have those other things going on, that I was just able to be at home in the comfort of my own home and around people that I wanted to, because my hospital only allows 1 visitor and you can't switch him out. So it was only my husband, so I wasn't able to be with my mom or my other girls during that time. So it was so nice to be able to have my little babies with me and my mom there to help me get through these contractions. I mean, my mom and Brett were really my support people for the entire day, and then Brett was alone it was only me and Brett at the last few hours. And so it was really nice being able to labor at home. So going on to the next point was being distracted. Distraction is really nice, and I don't mean like trying to brush it off like, oh no, this isn't happening. I'm saying like fully embrace what you're going through, fully embrace that you're laboring. But then, I mean, being distracted by my girl. Rennie, you just knocked it. Come over here. Sit right here. Sit right here. You can play with the stuff on the ground. Let me move this back. Being distracted by my girls, you know, having like my mom and Brett helped like a ton with the girls that day, but knowing that they had like a schedule and things, and knowing, you know, oh, hey, they need lunch now, or they need to take a nap now, you know, that was a distraction. And then also playing games with my mom and Brett, and playing with the girls, and then we got our nails done, we went to a chocolate tasting, we talking to people, like other people out and about or on the phone. It was just, and I know that you can talk to people on the phone at the hospital, but just having those distractions just to help me realize that it wasn't like when you're in the hospital, there's like, you're in a one room on one bed. You can watch TV or do other things, but you're just so like invested in the contractions that they get so painful. But when you're not, when you're like, okay, I'm done with this contraction, let's keep playing this game, or I'm done with this contraction, blah, blah, blah. It's really nice. And so even if you are laboring in the hospital and you want to give birth naturally, you can still be distracted. You can still bring games, talk to people, you know, FaceTime people, have like a project that you're working on, maybe your baby book or something like that, that you can do in the hospital to keep your mind distracted so you're not constantly only thinking about the contractions that you're going through. Okay, my next, Rennie, say hello.
Hello.
Hello. How old are you? You're 1. Okay, be so quiet for me, okay? The big girls are with Brett. It's Greta's first dentist appointment today. Well, first like cleaning today. Huh? Is Greta going to the dentist? And May loves the dentist. Yep, your balloon. Put it down for the video though, okay? There we go. Okay, my next point is probably something that you've heard of, and it's using combs. You hold a comb in your hand and have the bristles up against your palm. Yep, just like that, and you hold onto it and you squeeze it. And I mean, I wouldn't say it like takes away the pain. It didn't take away the pain for me, but I don't think it did, at least. It more was like a distraction of like something that I could do with my hands. I held onto those combs. I started at home right before we left. In the car, I held onto them the whole time. During pushing, I held onto the whole time, and as soon as she was born, I threw them both on the ground. Yeah, cool balloon. And is that hilarious? Thank you. And so it's kind of like a distraction. But they also say that it might like help the brain receptors have different pain, like your brain reacts to the pain in your hand before it reacts to the contractions. And so there could be science behind this, but that was something that was helpful for me. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, my next one, ready? Put it down.
No.
My next tip is to have positive thoughts, but not just that, but think as you are having contraction, think about the baby moving down. And if that's in, I remember my older sister saying that she imagined, I don't know if she imagined like flying over something through each contraction. I miscarried a baby in between May and Greta, and when I was miscarrying the baby, when I was like the most painful part of the miscarriage, I was laying in the bath, and I remember my sister Brooke telling me about that, and imagining myself flying, cool, flying over water through each contraction. And Ren, I love it, no girl, okay. And that was really helpful to get through the pain. With Lottie, what I was imagining, because we call her Lottie Blossom, her middle name isn't Blossom, but we loved it so much we considered it for her first name, and so she actually doesn't have a middle name, but we call her Lottie Blossom. And so I was imagining, it just came into my head, just like a flower blossoming, kind of like your cervix ripening. I was imagining a flower blossoming when I was having, not every contraction, but I had that thought. And so having like not only positive thoughts, but also like literally thinking about your body changing and like, okay, this is opening up my cervix, and then even having like a picture in your head is really helpful, and it helped me during my labor. My next point is having your support having your support person push on your back. And what helped me was, it was kind of hard on the ball, because if Brett pushed me too hard, you know, I'd have to like use my legs to help so I wouldn't fall over, and then that distracted me from like handling the pain. Hey, Rennie, let's put the balloon down, okay?
No.
Can you hold it down here? Thank you. And so what helped me even more was him kind of like pushing my hips in with both of his hands really hard. It really did. It really did. It did. And that's your balloon, you're right. Okay, hold it down. And that helped me. In my laboring video, you can hear me saying, Brett, help me, whispering that, or even in the hospital as I was walking. And he knew to talk to me, and then also to like push on my hips or push against my back. And so that was really helpful for me. I think that we had him use his fist one time, and I was like, no, I don't like that. Or maybe it was just him pushing against my back. I really liked him squeezing my hips together. It really, if there was anything to ease my pain, it was sitting on the yoga ball and him pushing against my hips. My 8th, I can't talk. Yeah. My 8th tip is to use a heating pad. Really? I used it at home yeah, your balloon. Earlier, the day that I was laboring at home, I laid on the couch that night with cheese. Yep. When the girls were going to sleep, my cheese, Brett and my mom getting the girls to sleep, I laid on the couch to try to take a nap. I was so tired, and I think that I had a headache. Anyways, I used a heating pad then, and then I also used a heating pad at night before we left for the hospital. I put it in between my legs, and heat really helps. I tried to take a bath. Our bath is really, really, really lame, and so it didn't help. It probably helps other people. I'm sure it would if I had like a really deep bath. It would have been helpful. Put it down, please. But my bath didn't help me much. But using the heating pad was comforting, and also like a different like, I don't know, maybe like one of the 5 senses that you're like kind of, again, with your positive mindset. I didn't do this as much, but I should have been like, you know, okay, what am I smelling right now? What am I hearing right now? What am I feeling right now? I think that's a pretty good tip. I didn't really do that. Maybe I actually even heard that too, but I didn't do it. Yeah, but having the heating pad was one of those senses that you're like, okay, I have heat on me. And also, obviously, if you've had period cramps before, you know that a heating pad really helps with contractions. It does also, and just as a comfort. I even dragged it. I had my mom and Brett unplug it from the wall, and then I dragged it, brought it in the car. Obviously, it wasn't working anymore, but I was like, okay, the leftover heat will help me. I felt like I had to have it in the car laboring to the hospital. And if you do have a heating pad, you could even use like a rice, like the rice heating pads where you put it in the microwave. This is nice though, because you can just plug it in and it heats up pretty quickly, and it stays heated up for a long time. So that is a good tool to use. Can you please put that down? It's too loud.
No.
Okay, will you not squeeze it anymore?
Yeah.
Okay, just hold it soft. My next tip is to use the shower or the bath. I wish the bath worked for me. I wish I had a really nice bath. Maybe in the next labor, I'll have a nice bath. But I did shower, and that was comforting. That was in the early stages of labor, and so I wasn't in like terrible pain, but it was nice and comforting to have the hot water up against my body while I was in the early stages of labor. You're cute. Okay, my last tip is something I've already been talking about a lot, but is to have a support person there, or multiple support support people if you can. Especially if you're laboring at home, you definitely can. And after all this COVID stuff, you probably will be able to also, I would assume. But having a support person that has listened to you, that you've talked to and been able to tell exactly what you want. Brett and I obviously have been through 3 births together, and so I told him exactly, there was a video that I watched by Bridget that was like towards the support people. And I don't know if I had him watch it or if I like showed him little bits and pieces or I told him about it, but that was helpful. But also just being able to tell him, okay, these are some specific phrases that I think would be good for you to say, that I would like you to say. Or even we watched the video about like pushing on my back, how he could do that. And I told him what I'd want him to say to the nurses, you know, like I don't want, if they, like, about offering an epidural or whatever. We weren't there long enough, obviously. So there was a lot of details that I talked to Brett about how I wanted him to, what I wanted him to say and how I wanted him to help me get through it. And so that was, even about filming it, like you can see in my birth vlog, I'm like, are you filming? Are you filming? We had talked about that, and he knew that I wanted him to film. So yeah, having somebody there that will also not get offended at you when you know, I snapped a couple times at Brett. Not like really snapped at him, but I was like, hold up my leg, or like don't talk right now, talk to me, or you know, whatever it is. And so having somebody there that really is there to completely support you and focus completely on you and help you through it is, I think, a really like a key aspect in going naturally. So those are all of my tips for having an unmedicated labor and delivery. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe and become a part of our YouTube family. Don't forget to like this video and let me know in the comments if there are any other videos you'd like me to do about labor and delivery, or about any of my experience, or any tips you'd like me to share with you about other aspects of labor and delivery, naturally or with epidural. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.